small bacteria overgrowth. And a lot of time when in SIBO, we see patient with indigestion. We can see bloating after eating. Dysbiosis usually means that's an imbalance of bacteria. Bacteria can be found on our skin, our mucosal membrane. Most importantly, the reservoir, we call it a reservoir of bacteria, is in our gut. So look at the gut, that there are tons, it's not a sterile place. Okay? Billions of bacteria, good and bad. The simple answer of dysbiosis that is not an infection, but I'm gonna dig a little deeper. Balanced bacterial world, it has to be having good ones and the bad ones. And the diversity has to be it has a rich diversity, it has a balance and versatile good ones overpowering the bad ones. So we don't talk about killing the bad ones because a lot of time they have to live together. And bacteria also help our immunity to adapt and learn. So it's not a good idea to kill the bad ones completely and make it a sterilized world. Look at the allergy with our Ig mediated hypersensitivity, is that a lot of time when it's so sterile, our immune system doesn't learn. So we need to have the good ones and bad ones, but we have to have a balance. When it's balanced, it's like it's more favor of the good ones than the bad ones. So we don't clean it out. We don't want it to be sterile. We want it to be balanced. So in the case of dysbiosis, what are we talking about? We're talking about imbalance, loss of diversity, the bad ones overtaking the environment or the cavity or the organ or the tissue, and also the lack of function or the decrease of the function. So in this case, it's imbalance. The ecosystem, you can look at that ecosystem is just so out of balance or loss of vitality. So think of it like a forest that's overtaken by weeds and not be able to grow anything. That is very similar to dysbiosis. So if you look at it in our gut, it's not an infection. So to clarify that, it's not an infection, because infection means that there is a pathogen invasion, and it causes tissue damage. It causes acute high-grade inflammation. Dysbiosis, however, it can cause inflammation, but it's more low-grade, chronic, dysfunctional inflammation. H. pylori is an infection. H. pylori is a bacteria that is introduced. It can be introduced by shared food, from soil, from utensil, from saliva. So it's introduced. So it's not supposed to be in our gut. We are not supposed to live with it. So like yeast. However, like yeast overgrowth is a dysbiosis, because we can have yeast in our gut, but we're not supposed to have it overgrowth. Then it will be overtaking the function. It will overtaking the mucosal membrane, and then it will lead to dysfunction. No, it's not similar. Small bacteria overgrowth. And a lot of time when in SIBO, we see patient with indigestion. We can see bloating after eating. We can see sometimes alternating constipation and diarrhea. So again, that's dysfunction. So SIBO, when there's a bacterial overgrowth, when we talk about dysbiosis, we need to know that it's a whole gut, the whole GI system having an imbalance of the bacteria, not just one location. So SIBO, it's because it's small intestine bacteria overgrowth, it's limited in small intestine. And that overgrowth can be caused by medication, such as acid suppressant like omeprazole. Stress that can lead to motility issues, so you're not breaking down food as well. And then it could be from aging. It could be from poor food selection that cause more of indigestion. When the food is not broken down completely or efficiently, then the bad bacteria will use it as party food, because the good bacteria, like lactobacillus, because they are more acid tolerant, so they are competing with the bad ones, like the yeast or E. coli and the Colibacilla, bacteria in this category, that the bad one will start thriving, and then the further change the pH in the small intestine. So it becomes a vicious cycle. So in short, dysbiosis and SIBO, they can be interchangeable, but you can have dysbiosis without SIBO. And if you have SIBO, then it's very likely that you have dysbiosis. The short answer is yes, but the long answer is no. Because in the case of SIBO, yes, they are antibiotic to help to clear the bacteria. But the following step that we need to take is that how do we restore the balance? How do we strengthen the GI function? How do we increase the motility? How do we balance acid production without relying on the medication? So a lot of time that we can see patients that take the antibiotic and clear SIBO, and it keeps coming back because they don't have the following step that help to restore the gut, help to restore the mucosal integrity, help to restore the motility, and also help the stomach to produce the right amount of acid to help. So sometimes they can go back to taking acid suppressant like omeprazole, or they have to be on very restricted diet and then eventually become malnourished. So there are steps that we need to take after taking the antibiotic for SIBO. However, H. pylori is a true infection. So for H. pylori, I would say definitely take the antibiotic first. But remember, because antibiotic, it can lead to dysbiosis, then we still need to take the same strat of gut restoration. Pre and probiotic will be more of that placeholder and the food that feed the good bacteria. The gut health start in the oral cavity. So if we don't have a good production of the saliva, if we don't have enough force in mastication, which is the chewing power, then we cannot break down the food efficient or enough that it go down to the stomach and then further breaking down and churning. So we always want to start, if we are talking about gut health, we always want to start with oral health first. The efficient chewing, sufficient saliva production, a good breaking down or digestion starting in the gastric, a balanced production of the acid, a good enzymatic work in the small intestine, a balanced bacteria in the small intestine, in the large intestine, and motility, a rhythmic motility in the peristalsis and the elimination. So all these steps can ensure the gut health. So it's more than just pro and prebiotic. A lot of time when we saw patients with SIBO, the diet will be a very, very important element in this. When we talk about diet, it's not restricted, it's diversity. Remember, diversity is a very important keyword in gut health or in the dysbiosis, because dysbiosis a lot of time is losing of the diversity. So how do we make sure that we have a good diversity of the gut bacteria? Fiber. Fiber is the key. So fiber is the prebiotic that it's easy and cheap to get, but it plays an important role in gut health. So, and the fiber also can help the elimination. So we have the water-soluble fiber, which is the food of the good bacteria. We have the insoluble fiber, that is like the broom or the brush that can sweep off the toxin, the impurity, the metabolic waste out of our system for elimination. So fiber is very important. So the key, I'm sure you heard of this, and I'm going to help everybody to review, is that for women, we need to have at least 25 grams a day, which is actually not that easy if you look at it. So for the fiber supplement, every teaspoon is about 5 grams. So in order to hit that, you need to have at least 5 teaspoons of fiber. And for men, it's about 35 grams, which is about 5 cups to 9 cups of raw vegetable, and at least 5 cups to 7 cups of cooked vegetable. A lot of us don't hit that number. So fiber will be very, very important in the part of diet. I am a big fan of fiber supplement. I don't used to do that. However, when I do my food journal, my diet journal, I'm like, I always miss just a little bit. So adding that fiber supplement is actually good. And fiber supplement should be seen as a medicinal food because like psyllium husk, it can also help us to lower the blood sugar. So I feel that fiber supplement should be part of our diet and see it as more of medicinal, like coffee and tea. Yes, but always remember, we don't want to do anything to cause the inflammation again because inflammation is also one of the root cause of dysbiosis, such as blood sugar. The blood sugar overload in the system that can lead to the inflammation in the gut, and then that can stress the gut bacteria, and then vicious cycle starts again. The food that is fibrous, that is rich in fiber, is actually all sorts of vegetable. But we need to look at the water-soluble fiber. Well, when we talk about water-soluble fiber, just think of it like a gooey paste that you mix with water and then it starts to become gooey. So what I can think of is our chia seed, flaxseed grind. Flaxseed, if you just eat a flaxseed, it's not going to help too much. But you want to grind it right before you right before you eat it. And the pectin, like citrus pectin, the white part of the citrus, they are like gold. It's a wonderful. It is rich in water soluble, so it's wonderful. Don't just peel it off and make your orange look naked. If we want to have insoluble fiber, those fibrous food like our leafy greens, our like celery. Most of the plant-based diet is rich in both water-soluble and non-soluble fiber. So when you feel like you're not eating enough fiber, then always look into the plant-based diet. So when we talk about SIBO, SIBO is part of dysbiosis, we need to stick with low FODMAP, especially when we're trying to restore the function. Because fibers is part of carb, the big family of carb, and these food that is rich in FODMAP is actually pretty fermentable. So including garlic, including onion, a food from the olive family usually are rich in FODMAP. So if you're in the midst of restoring the gut and taking care of SIBO, then we need to avoid that. The fiber, especially introducing fiber, you have to be very slowly and then make sure it's not fermentable. So in the case in this, we need to be careful. If you're not someone that always hit 25 to 30 grams a day of fiber, then you need to introduce it really, really slowly. You don't want to just go in and have 9 cups of raw vegetable and then try to stuff yourself with that, because again, that can cause a very big stress for the gut. It can, because for fiber to work, you need to have water. So a lot of time, but if we're up the amount of fiber, we're not upping the water, you can cause constipation and also bloating. Because remember that UTI, whether it's from the fertile age ladies or the menopause ladies, we have that dysbiosis, and that the common ground is that there's dysbiosis. So if we want to treat or fortify in these two group of people so that we don't get UTI as often or ever, is that we want to start with gut health. So like I said, if you are someone that suffer at least once or twice of UTI, then you need to look at dysbiosis. Whatever you do, you have to treat the gut. If you like this video, please subscribe and follow me, and I'll see you soon.